Here we go, episode 9 of the All Sweet podcast. We've got a lot going on this episode. I'll talk about, as usual, how the week went, but I've also got a few audience or listener questions, which I will answer and chat through. Some ridiculous, some serious, some fun. Let's just see how it goes, eh? It should be good. How's things going? It's a Monday today. I've done some exercise. I've drank a nice coffee as usual. I've sat on my phone for more hours than I wish. But I'll tell you what, the week's starting better than how the weekend was. I love how this is called the All Sweet podcast. And I think in every episode, at least 80% of it is me talking about how things aren't sweet, because they're not. Things are sweet, but they're not sweet a lot of the time. And that's part of life. Maybe that's what this whole angle is. It's trying to manifest the good things in life, even when things aren't good. What's been happening? I am coming to realize I don't have that many friends. I think there's something as you get older, I've heard this a lot among other friends of mine who are already 30, and a lot of the conversations I'm having seem to be similar among everyone. Everyone is finding their friendship circle isn't as big as they thought it to be. And I think that's natural. As people get older, everyone has different responsibilities. Some people are married, some have kids. Some work 9 to 5, some work various other hours. So I get it's harder to catch up and do things. I think I've noticed that there's some people who just have heaps and heaps of friends well into adulthood. And then there's other people who, have podcasts. This is how it is. This is how my life is. I've noticed, I think this year, I'm going to treat this year as the year of minimizing the social hangs. I had a good run for a good few years, but sometimes I'll be out, I'll be hanging with people, and I'll be sitting there, I'll be thinking, man, what is this hang right now? What am I getting out of this? Probably what you guys think when you listen to this, but hopefully what you're getting out of it right now is something relatable to help you feel like you're not alone. But I'm sure most of you listening have had that feeling at some point. It's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3, 4, 5, 6, depending how hard you go on the sesh. But you're sitting there and you're like, what am I doing at this hang right now? I don't like most of these people. These stories I've heard this story probably 3 times tonight and multiple times over the last 10 years. What am I getting out of this? But there's this element where you get scared to leave the hang in case it improves and in case it gets better. And that's something I have been so bad with over the years. And I was like this even as a teenager. My parents would drop me off to parties, like, little birthday parties and stuff in high school. And they'd say, you don't need to be the last one to leave. And this problem is carried over well into my 20s, and I think it's going to be a problem that I always have. I don't know how to leave the hang. And I think a large part of it is I'm having a mediocre time as it is, and I'm just trying to find a way to make this hang better, but it's not getting better, man. I've had a lot of different friend groups and friends over the years, males, females, from music, from comedy, just from the area, just all these different people. And I caught up with some friends on the weekend because I saw them the week before and it was great, and I hadn't hung out with these people in so long. So I thought, I'm going to see you guys. Yeah, this was nice. That's where you always get in trouble. When you catch up with friends you haven't seen in a long time, and then you remember, this was a nice hang. I should hang with you guys more. And then you make the step to make the hang more regular. And then you're reminded why you don't hang to begin with. This particular group of friends, a lot of them are male. We live close to each other. Some of the loveliest people I know, but oh my God, if you're a girl, you can't go on a night out with these guys. That they're the type of people who have to walk everywhere. They spend more of their night walking to and from the venue than being in the venue. The night started off with the loosest plan ever. Then it was, we're going to go to the beach and drink beers. I said, well, I'm getting dressed up. I'll meet you guys at the venue. Then it changed from the beach to, we're going to go to so-and-so's house. I'm like, cool, I'll pick you guys up from that person's house when you're ready. Like, sounds good. Arrive at the house. Come up. We still have a few tins left. It's 11:30 p.m. We still haven't even left to go out at this point. We're all adults here. We all have real world jobs. Can't we just be at a venue? What's this hang in some person's house or apartment? You know, we have jobs. We're all cooped up in our homes and jobs enough as it is. Let's enjoy the concept of out. I will buy you guys your first round if money is the issue, and we're all sitting around sharing the one beer to save $10 each. I will just buy the round. What are we doing? Then we finally get to a venue. The whole time we're at the venue, no one wants to be at that venue. And this has been something I've noticed over the years. No one wants to be at that venue, and then they're complaining about another venue. After 3 hours of complaining about this other venue, we end up going to that venue. I'm designated driver. Everyone's telling me, park here, go here. There's a car park here, there's a car park there. 2 of these guys don't have licenses and never have had a license. One's just gotten one. He was the most understanding. But I'm thinking, it was this kind of hang that just reminded me, I see why I haven't hung out with you guys in years. And I got sucked in. Because we had a good time one week, and I thought, you know what, let's do this hang again. Whenever you try do a hang for the second time, it's never as good. I remember a few years ago, myself and 3 other friends went on this night out, and this night out became iconic among the friend group. You know when you have that night out that you talk about for the next couple of years until you all eventually fall out and no one talks to each other? That was the kind of night out this was. Everyone was just relaxed and laughing and having fun, and there was just chemistry among the whole friendship group. And we tried to do this same night again a few months later because it was the night. It was such a fun night. Let's do it all again. We thought, let's go let's have dinner at the same place and go drink at the same place. The only variable was we included a 5th person into the group. Shifting the hang from 4 to 5 people is a feat in itself because suddenly none of the arrangements work. Like, not all of you fit in the Uber. Not all of you fit in a booth at the restaurant. Suddenly we're having to cram more chairs around a table at a bar. Everyone's sitting on different heights because we're swapping between table chairs and stools. It doesn't, going from a 4-person to a 5-person hang, it just doesn't translate. And we attempted this hang, and this 5th member that we brought in, it just wasn't vibing. Their timing was off. They threw off the whole group dynamic. And then we thought the only thing that can save this night is by going back to this bar that we went to on the initial night. And we went back to this bar. It's burnt down. And then now most of that group don't talk anymore. So it's like, clearly that one good night we had is never meant to happen again and won't happen again. And that's what happens with so many things in life, whether I think it's a friendship or a friend group or a partner or a venue, whatever it is, you're constantly drugs. I've never taken a drug, but this is what I hear. You have a good experience and you're constantly just chasing that same experience again, and it's never as good. And then you can keep the chase going, hoping for something to happen, but nothing ever happens. Do I have a solution to this? No, I don't. My solution and New Year's resolution is going to be stop going to these subpar hangs thinking it's going to be good or thinking that it'll get better, because nothing gets better. And if it was so good to begin with, you wouldn't have stopped hanging out with these people. So that's my little advice for the start of this episode. I've had some Instagram questions. Let's run through them, see what we've got here. We'll talk through them. Hopefully I can make some good content. Shall I start with funny or start with serious? Let's start with... All right, let's start with something light. Riffs versus jokes. What's the difference? It's funny because the word riffs, coming to comedy from music, hearing the word riff was quite confusing to me for some time, because when I hear a riff, I picture it in a music context where it's the notes. So basically in music, you've got your chords and you've got your riff, and the riff is the bit that's memorable, and sometimes it has power to be improvised or tweaked a bit, but it's the overall memorable and grabbing part of the song. And then coming into comedy, I'd hear people say, oh, that was a good riff. And I guess in a comedy context, riff refers to often when someone said something a bit more off the cuff, it's less planned. And then you've got your jokes, which, they're usually bits that you've thought about and pre-written. There could be stories, there could be one-liners. Often you already have the setup written, the context and the punchline written. That's what a joke is. And I think if you were to compare it to music, it's like how music has the chords. That's the skeleton of the song. You're always going to come back to these specific 4 chords or 2 chords that might be in the chorus or the verse. That's always what you come back to. And similarly in comedy, your jokes are the pre-written thing. You can go off on a riff, and a riff in my head is something that's more loose and unscripted. It could be an interaction with an audience. It could be a tag that you add onto an existing joke. It could be, through an interaction you've had with an audience, or maybe you've told a joke in that moment and a thought has come into your head, and then you've started elaborating on that thought, trying to develop it and turn it into something. That's what a riff is in comedy. And I guess it's kind of similar to music as well, because riffs can often start off quite loose as you try to figure out what the exact riff is going to be. And often that riff as well, you can repeat it in a solo and then expand it into something else. It's less I think it's less regimented, and you have more flexibility to explore with a riff. And that's in both comedy and in music. So that's what a riff is. And a joke would be similar, again, like in music, how you have chords. In comedy, you have jokes. They're the things that after a riff, you will go back. This is how I operate, at least. I will go back to the joke or to jokes I already have written and know that work, because they essentially serve as a bit of an anchor. Because I could go on a riff. It could go great. It could go shocking. As long as I have my jokes to go back to, that helps me pull the set back together. I guess, yeah, it's like music. You could have a riff which you then expand into a solo. You could drag this solo on into something sensational until it eventually peaks, and there's that moment where you're like, yeah, I've peaked with this. I'm going to bring it back to the song now. Or you could just go, this is unraveling into something dire. I need to go back into the main chords or to the chorus to save this. So I guess, yeah, riffs are riffs in music and in comedy, and jokes are essentially the chords of comedy. I've used an analogy to explain an analogy. There you go. I like riffing, but I have to be in a comedy context. I struggle with riffing if I'm not comfortable with the audience. If the audience isn't responding well to me, or they're not an audience that I can connect with, or they're not an audience that I feel inherently understand me or the humor I'm trying to do, I tend to stay away from riffs, because I find the best riffs come to me when I'm comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, that's when you exude the most confidence. And confidence is key when you're telling a story, or if you're doing a guitar solo. You need to, whatever you're planning to execute, you need to execute it with 100% confidence in what you're doing. Because as soon as you're hesitant in what you're playing or what you're saying, the audience picks up on that, you start doubting yourself, and it all unravels. It's funny, there's a lot of crossover between music and comedy. It's just the nature of performing and entertaining, isn't it? Because people will respond, even though there's different genres of music, different genres of comedy, and these are all different art forms. I think how we respond to a certain stimulus is the same. I think we respond well to confidence. We respond well to people who aren't hesitant in what they're doing. And I think that's with everything, even in person. You know, if someone gives you a limp handshake, or struggles to make eye contact, or is give you a presentation, and or you're approaching a business, or you're in a restaurant ordering something, and someone responds to you with hesitancy, I think. You then feel like you can't trust this person to execute whatever it is they need to execute. So yeah, I think confidence is what unpins good jokes and good riffs. And yeah, essentially jokes are more crafted and riffs are more loosey-goosey, baby. What other questions did we have? Is wokeness ruining comedy? Or are people just bitching because they can't be as offensive anymore? It's interesting, because when I read this particular question, it's funny when you read questions like this, because you look at the tone something's written in, and then try to figure out the pretense, or how they, or if there's a particular angle to what they're asking. Is wokeness ruining comedy, or are people just bitching because they can't be as offensive anymore? I'm just going to take a guess here and assume this person writing this feels like a lot of comedians are bitching that they can't tell offensive jokes. And I think this particular question is coming from someone who maybe has an already skewed opinion on this and wants to hear now what my opinion is. I'm not here to dissect the question. I should be answering the question, but the nature of me is I like to dissect everything. So first things first, is wokeness ruining comedy? Yes. Straight up, yes. Are people just bitching they can't be as offensive anymore? Also, yes. Yes and yes. Now let me think how I can deliver this with the most clarity and confidence, as I just discussed. Is wokeness ruining comedy? I think it's audiences who, there's certain types of audiences who are ruining comedy, and I think they are people who aren't necessarily comedy fans. Let me first address the easier part of this, which is, are people just bitching because they can't be as offensive anymore? Now, this comes down to whether or not, that ultimately comes down to whether or not you're a good or bad comedian. Because I think at the end of the day, the intention of every comedian should be to make people laugh and to have a good time. You're not going to make people laugh and have a good time if your goal is to offend. If you're doing comedy and your whole thing is, I want to offend people and upset people, that's not what comedy is. In saying that, you can do comedy through, mocking stereotypes or mocking things in pop culture, politics, or finding a stereotype and thinking, why does this stereotype exist? What makes this stereotype funny or endearing? When you do something in that light, your intention at least is to entertain and make something funny. You can also be a comedian who wants to be controversial and the topics they touch on may be politically skewed, but they're controversial because they might be touching on serious topics. I'm just trying to think of a few that I've seen, comedians who might talk on politics or wars or religion or abortion, rather serious topics, but then they try find a spin on it. The comedians who do this the best are often the comedians who can mock both sides to a degree. And their intention isn't to offend anyone. Their intention is to highlight the ridiculousness of two sides of the same coin. And through highlighting that ridiculousness, helping other people see ridiculous things on a particular topic and get entertainment and enjoyment from it. The awful comedian who's like, I want to be controversial and upset people, they're probably the comedian who's going to bitch about how you can't say anything anymore, you can't be offensive. It's like, why would you want to be offensive to begin with? Why not just make it fun and enjoyable? And yeah, you can take the piss out of what's happened here with my camera. Hang on. Isn't that fucking great? The camera has overheated and turned off. So I've spent an hour doing my makeup to not be able to get any clips from this episode. Fan-fucking-tastic. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Are people just bitching because they can't be as offensive anymore? No, they're bitching because they're a shit comedian. Is wokeness ruining comedy? Yes, it is. So this is my experience of wokeness ruining comedy. You have people who attend comedy gigs and they struggle to understand it. It's like they hear a certain word and think this joke is offensive and they can't look at the context of how the joke is being told. A really good example of this is a comedian from Melbourne, Paul Sharplin. Very good joke writer, very good comedian, lovely, lovely dude as well. Really good dude. No intention to offend anybody. His intention, as he said to me, he wants to be kind of like the quirky uncle, a bit silly, a bit dumb. And his jokes are smart and they're fun. And a lot of it is some of the jokes are him trying to find his place in society as, and it'll be jokes like not understanding how to book gigs anymore and having to send someone a DM and send a TikTok. And he's like, I thought someone was asking me to put my dick in their boots. Like those kind of jokes. He's just fun and I've always enjoyed his sets. He had this one joke about, it was about a mispronunciation between trance music and trans music. He didn't even finish the joke. He just said the word trans and someone got up, stormed his set and called him a fucking idiot and caused a whole scene and tried to start a fight in the venue, literally just caused a whole scene. And it's like, okay, how about you wait and hear what he has to say? Because the full joke isn't saying anything bad about anyone. And I've had the same thing happen as well. Like being of someone who is ethnic background, I have done jokes in Brunswick about, essentially ethnic people, European, Balkan, WOG. Like I said, for the English people listening to this, WOG has a very different meaning in Australia. But for the European, Balkan, essentially me, Yugos, Greeks, Italians, whatever. As soon as I touch on that content, they get all weird about it. And it's the same. If you were to tell a joke about an interaction you had with someone who might have been Chinese or Indian, the initial reaction is, you can't talk about their race. Well, why can't you? Isn't it giving context? Or you make a joke about someone's gender or all those sorts of things. There's this whole thing of you can't say that. And my belief is, as soon as you go into things of, oh, you can't joke about an Indian person or a Chinese person or a female or a bisexual person or a trans person or a this or a that, you're clearly going into this because you think those people are less than you. The fact that you feel, we should be able to joke about everyone, because isn't that the ultimate form of inclusivity? Being able to laugh about everybody and the weird things that we all do or the things, we all say. And I've had this conversation with a comedian I know who's Indian, and it was in a workshop group, and someone asked her, how do you feel about people joking about interactions they've had with Indian people or Indian stereotypes? And she goes, I love it because I exist and I'm part of the population and I want to feel included and I want to be spoken about. If you're here eliminating people from a conversation because of their race or gender identity or whatever else it is, you're essentially saying that you think those people are less than you, so we can't laugh at them. We can't talk about their race. We can't talk about their gender. We can't talk about the quality that is unique to them and makes them them. Because as soon as you do that, you're seen as offensive. And I think it's more offensive the fact that you want to eliminate these features, these qualities people have from the conversation. Long story short, short story long, wokeness is ruining comedy, but I think there is a shift coming where people just want to have a good time and want to hear jokes that are intended to make people laugh and intended for people to go out and have fun. So I think people are getting tired of the wokeness, and I can see a shift starting to happen. Does that answer the question? What else have we got here? Aussies versus Europeans. Oh my God. The timing. Oh my gosh. Some of these jokes fit in with that previous question. Aussies versus European. What are the differences? Honestly, so many differences. So many differences. Honestly, so many differences. And the funny thing with that question appearing straight after the last question, I'm now really overthinking about how I can answer this. Aussies versus Europeans. Straight up, Europeans are funnier. I don't know what it is with, not even just Europeans. I'm talking Greeks, Italians, Yugos. People will come at me for saying Yugo because Yugoslavia is not a country anymore. But Aussies versus Europeans, I do find Europeans funnier. And not specifically Europeans. Aussies versus Europeans, we do have a lot of differences. Straight up, it's just different. I find I'm able to connect with Europeans a lot easier. And not even just Europeans, it's just ethnic people in general I find easier to connect with. And ethnic, by ethnic, I mean, again, the whole Italians, Greeks, Serbians, Macedonians, Croatians, Albanians, Turks, Lebanese, Iranians, Middle Eastern, all those cultures, I personally find them easier to connect with because we've had Chinese, Indian, we've had similar lived experiences. We've come from slightly stricter upbringings. We've come from backgrounds that are very much family centric. I'm not saying this is better than Aussies. I think both cultures, if I'm going to like just use blanket terms for the cultures right now, both have their good and bad qualities. And it depends how you perceive these qualities as well. I think European culture is heavily set in family values. You know, a lot of us don't move out of home until we're married or starting our own families. If we do move out of home, we stay close to the family home. There's a big emphasis on the family unit and doing things as a family. Even me, I've moved out of home. I am still welcome every day to come home for dinner, for lunch. My family, when I lived at home, they never charged me rent. It was very different. Whereas a lot of Australian friends of mine, the attitudes were very much about building your independence. And, you know, once you're 18, you're off on your own, son. Like, they start charging their kids rent. They encourage their kids to move out of home. The kids often go, you know, the kids go to schoolies. They go overseas they take years off gallivanting and backpacking, doing all these things. And I think that's not a bad thing. And that's good because I didn't get to have those experiences. You know, if I said to my parents, I would like to go backpacking, or I want to go to schoolies, or I want to move out at 18 and rent somewhere, no chance. That would not be allowed to happen without a fight happening, without a fight breaking out. Certain friends of mine are in their 30s and they live at home and are getting partners and into serious relationships, and they're encountering these similar issues as they're getting older. Whereas I feel the Aussie family is a lot more accepting of a lot more things. You know, whoever your partner is that month, they've brought them into the family like their own. You know, it's normal for a new partner to attend a wedding, a christening, a funeral, the barbecue, whatever. In ethnic households, it takes many years at times for a girlfriend or boyfriend to even be introduced to parents. And I don't think either of these are necessarily better or worse. It's just these are the differences. What else? I think Europeans are funnier. And like I said, I'm talking about Europeans, Middle Eastern, ethnic people in general. I find them funnier people. It's something about the delivery and the exaggeration when they tell a story, the overreactions to things. You know, there's a short fuse that snaps and they'll read into things a certain way. And because of how they've read into something, that's where that humor comes from. Whereas again, the Aussies and the Anglos are a lot more relaxed about a lot. It's all, she'll be right. She'll be all right. They don't get bothered by things that a lot of my ethnic mates get bothered by. So, and because they don't have that part of them, that funny side to them, they don't have, because they don't get bothered by the same shit that bothers us and that fires us up. That's why all our countries don't exist anymore. That's why all our countries are constantly fighting with each other, because we all have these short fuses that go off, that set us off. You know, I shouldn't get annoyed because I don't like how a waitress put down the knife and fork in front of me at a restaurant, or because she came up to me 4 times to check if I'm done with my coffee. Whereas an Aussie, like, oh, look at this. Oh, isn't that nice? Lovely service. Isn't that lovely how they check in on us? We're just different. And again, none of these are good or bad traits. And our approaches to a lot of things, it's just different. Again, like, even when it comes to rules, Aussies love rules. They will follow rules like they're gospel. It's like no wonder, and I'm not sure if it's because a lot of you guys have come from convicts, but you love a rule. You will abide by rules. Europeans hate rules. You can't give us a rule. As soon as I feel I am being given a rule, or someone's telling me how to do something or watching how I'm going to do something, I immediately just refuse to do it, or I start questioning why they want me to do something a certain way. And that was so evident by the big flu a few years ago. Nearly every ethnic person I knew was questioning everything. They didn't want the vaccine. They didn't want to follow lockdown rules. They didn't want to listen to it. And I wonder why that is a thing in our cultures, why Aussies are more likely to abide by rules and why Europeans have to break rules. So yeah, I think the main differences are Europeans don't follow rules. Aussies love a rule. Europeans, everything's loud and abrasive. Aussies have a certain laid back thing where it's like, I don't need to wear 5 watches at once. I'll pick one up from the op shop. It's all right. She'll be all right. Aussies have an aim to be more independent and live their own life, whereas Europeans, everything comes back to family and almost village mentality and herd mentality, where the only people you can trust are those near you, if that. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. And that's not to say any of these are better or worse, but I do think it is very different. All right, let's go to another question. BBLs versus naturals. All right, what's a BBL? What is it? Big booty lift? Brazilian butt lift? Let me type it up. Let me look at some asses here. Hang on. My search history is going to look very different very shortly. Look at this. You ask me questions like this, and suddenly my search history is all about asses. BBL versus natural. Okay. A Brazilian butt lift is a procedure that enhances shape and size of the buttocks. The main difference between a BBL and a natural look is the technique used. I mean, does the natural come from God? Like, what's the technique? Oh, so there's natural BBL and non-surgical BBL, and then BBL. Wouldn't you just opt for the natural one? Are there people out there who are like, I want an ass and I want it to look as fake as possible? Like, give me the Mount Rushmore of asses. All right, let me look. What's going on? I don't even know what I'm looking at here. Okay, Brazilian versus regular butt lift. I want to see side-by-side examples of these asses. So far, what I'm seeing, it's nothing special. What was that thing a few years ago where women were getting like the butt implants and then they were flipping over? So then the flat surface of the implant would then like stick out, and then they were having to flip the implant over in their ass cheek. Is that different? Have we progressed from that? Silicone fake butt pants. My gosh, there's a whole lot here, but I'm not seeing any actual images of Brazilian butt lifts. Do I need to look at porn? Is that going to help me? BBL versus natural real photo. Here we go. I don't know, these look pretty good. I have to be honest. I thought it was going to look... I work in a gym and I've seen some BBLs there and they don't look good. Like they look like they should be like... These asses that I'm seeing look like people should be stacking like a family photo on top of them. Like they look like a shelf. But what I'm seeing here, these look a lot better than the BBLs I'm seeing in real life. So unless these are just cherry-picked, nice-looking BBLs, what is the actual procedure? What is it? Moving fat or is it an implant? BBL surgery. Man, my audience is mostly males. Do you guys ever want to listen to this? It's a guy who asked me this question as well. I mean, men like asses, so maybe you guys do want to hear this. All right, so it's a procedure that reshapes the buttocks. How? What does it... Okay, so it's fat removed from other areas of the body and then essentially dumped on the ass to make a little dump truck. Okay, that's what it is. BBL or natural? I don't know. My opinion is I think natural for everything, unless whatever feature you have, unless you have a feature that is giving you serious insecurity, I think natural is the way to go. And my reasoning for that is, I had a discussion with someone at the gym the other day, and he goes to me, "Oh, have you ever thought about getting lip filler?" I'm like, "But I've already got like decent sized, a voluminous mouth on me." He goes, "Yeah, but it would enhance your cupids, bro." I'm having this conversation with a man, and I said, "But the problem is, in my opinion, as soon as people start venturing down the path of boob jobs and like fillers and BBLs and all this, if you already had a decent features to begin with, like say you already had good tits, all right? You already have good tits, but you're like, I'm going to make them even better by getting implants. You will just be seen as the person, oh, but she's got implants. Same as you could have a lovely nose or like lovely jaw and lips and cheeks, whatever, and then decide I'm going to get fillers to enhance that. This is my issue. Like, I'm not saying everyone has this thing. This is purely just my insecurity. If I was to get those things, my constant fear would be that people would be looking at me and be like, yeah, she looks good, but she had help to look good. Whereas getting nothing and maybe looking good, but maybe not as good as someone who's had these enhancements, it's like you're just baseline good and you haven't had any enhancements. Everything there is you and truly you. And my fear of getting any sort of plastic surgery or filler at this point, I might change my mind as I get older, but at this point is I worry if someone gives me a compliment, that in the back of my head, I'll always be like, yeah, but this truly isn't me. That's my thing. So yeah, BBL versus natural. I'm going to go natural. Unless you've got a pancake ass, then I don't know. Either hit some squats or buy these padded pants on Amazon, or hey, maybe opt for the Brazilian butt lift and shake your money maker, because you're going to have to pay that thing off somehow. They're my views. One more question and I think I'll wrap it up. Indian guy with the sore stomach and the guy drowning in high school. Oh man. See, I love how I went on this huge tangent about wokeness ruining comedy and the whole thing of people being scared to talk about race and different identities. And now I get these questions. Indian guy with the sore stomach and the guy drowning in high school. So these are two stories from high school that I have told someone and someone wants me to share with you guys. I'll tell the story of my Indian mate first. And this is the thing. Wokeness wouldn't allow me to tell this story, and that would force me to omit this guy's race. But his race is a big part of this story. So this Indian mate of mine, I'm not going to say his name. I'll just say the story as is. I'm going to call him Raj. Again, not racist. The guy has a very Indian name. If I was to now start calling him Jonathan and anglicizing his name because I'm scared to give him an Indian name despite him having an Indian name, that would therefore mean that I feel some guilt in what I'm saying, and I feel like I'm saying something wrong. So I'm calling him Raj for the sake of this story, because in real life he does have a very Indian name. It's just how it is. Anyway, me and Raj we went to school together, and honestly, the funniest dude without even trying to be funny. For the first few years, we were like, is this guy intentionally doing the things he's doing? Like, does he even know that he's funny? But my God, he was funny. Anyway, we're in home economics class one day and the teacher was away. We had this sports teacher filling in, some French guy. And of course, it's always the sports teachers filling in when another teacher is unavailable. And we're all there and we're all sitting around, I think watching something or just doing like theory work in a book. And Raj is there biting his pencil case. And I remember a few of us turned to him, we're like, Raj, you good? And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I mean, you don't seem fine. I know Smiggle smells good and everything, but I wouldn't go biting your pencil case. Anyway, so we leave him, go back to our work. And then he starts just sweating. We're like, Raj, what's happening? And then he goes, oh, I'm not feeling too good. And we're like, well, what's up? He goes, nah, I feel a stitch. He brought some curry. See, this sounds like a racist story, but this is true. He brought his like leftover curry that his mum had cooked it the day before. It's like how I bring gruff to school. I used to bring like these beans and all these like fasciana pipperki to school. It's just how it is. And he had brought some like chicken curry dish to school and he'd ate it at lunch and it just wasn't sitting well. And he's sitting there, he's biting his pencil case. And then eventually just screams out because the teacher's like, are you all good, man? He just goes, sir, I need to go to the toilet. And he's screaming it. Me being the shit friend I am, start laughing. We'll start laughing. And again, he was a mate of ours. It's fine. Do you see how I can't? The person who wrote this question in has heard me say this story in a much more relaxed context. I'm sweating telling this story. I'm like Raj right now, sweating and getting a stitch because I'm stressed how me telling this story is going to be perceived. He's like, I need to go to the toilet. And he's cramping. And I got kicked out of class because he's like, I can't look at you laughing at me. Can you leave? You're making the pain worse. So I remove myself. He gets carried out on a stretcher. And he's away from school for like 2-3 days. And everyone's like, what's happened to Raj? Where's he gone? And this was like early high school where no one was really on Facebook yet. People were sort of on MSN. Me and him, me being European, him being Indian, we didn't have internet. We didn't have social media. Our internet was like the 1 hour booking our parents would make for us at the local library. And even then we couldn't access social media apps. So then one day, so finally he's back. We're like, you all good? And then the teacher is like, oh, Raj, how you going? You good again? And he just looks at us, oh, I'm feeling much better. And this is the funniest thing I've ever heard. I don't know how it's going to translate. He turns around and just goes, the doctor gave to me a pill, a tablet, and makes a pop noise from his mouth and just leaves it at that. And that there is what I mean earlier when I say ethnic people are just funnier. He did that pop noise. My guess is to symbolize that finally his curry constipation, he was able to deal with it and he broke the seal on that. But the fact he did a pop noise and it just summed up everything he went through, and I felt the secondhand relief on his behalf, is exactly what I meant earlier when I was saying I do find ethnic people funnier. I've never heard any of my Anglo mates deliver anything like that. The story about the kid drowning, this was about... this guy was in my brother's year. His name was Yorgo, the only other Greek kid in the school. And we were dressing up for the swimming carnival. And I was dressed in like sort of a Hawaiian type outfit with like, the floral chain around my neck. And I had like a yellow flowery dress on. I was like captain of Yellow House. I was decked out in yellow. And he comes up to me and he goes, you gonna swim? And I said, oh, I don't know, Yorgo, probably not. And he's like, I said, are you? He goes, oh yeah, I was a born swimmer. I'm like, all right, good to know. Maybe he is. I mean, the kid was the Greekest kid ever. So I'm going to take his word for it. Then I copped my brother's version of this story. So later in the day, they're at the swimming carnival. He's in the men's the boys' changing room, like hype himself up, he's like Wim Hof breathing, trying to get himself into the mode, and just going, oh, you've got this, Yodgo, you've got this. He's like hitting his chest, he's grunting, and they're all like, man, this Yodgo guy, fuck, he's got to hammer us all in the freestyle. I kid you not, this guy jumped into the pool and sunk like a stone. The boy, who was a born swimmer, they had to rescue him with a pole out of the pool. After all his hyping, his Wim Hof breathing, and I'm like, dude, you're the only other Eastern European dude in this school. Must you give us this bad name by sinking in the swimming carnival? I already wasn't invited to the year 6 party, and we're definitely not getting invited now. Anyway, guys, that is episode 9 of the All Sweet podcast. Thank you so much for the questions. Send in more questions. I like answering the stuff you guys send in. You give me more content and more topics, because sometimes the week's quiet and what am I going to talk about? Just myself? It gets tiring, and I feel bad for you guys having to listen to this. But there's only so many times I could talk about the urge to bash a Bunnings employee. Thanks so much, guys. Like I said, episode 9 of the All Sweet podcast. Stay tuned for next week, episode 10. You guys have been great. Thank you for listening. Thanks for the support. Catch you soon.